Well, hello, writers. Welcome to episode number 312 of How Do You Write? So happy that you are here with me today as we are talking to Sascha Rothchild. And it was a fantastic interview on how to write distinct voices, which is something that I will and probably always will struggle with. We talked a little bit about some screenwriting fun and writers' rooms and her favorite show ever, which was the same as my favorite show ever, probably. So that is coming up, and you're going to really love hearing from her. So, what has been going on around here? A little catch up. I have been basking in the glow of having sent away my manuscript for editing, and I am honest to God in no hurry to get it back, although I probably will get it back within the week, and then I will jump into revisions, which will be fabulous. But at the moment, I am just catching up on all the things I let slide at the end of that deadline, and when I stopped answering email altogether and things like laundry. So I have been enjoying that and trying not to feel guilty about it because I have two default modes. One is workaholic from hell, and one is slacker but want to die because I'm so non-productive. And really what that adds up to, if you marry those two things, is a quite highly productive person. But neither state is really ideal. Both states are essentially uncomfortable. So I'm trying to do some work and some resting. I'm doing a lot of reading. Ooh, I'm about to finish something called Insomnia, which is a thriller, it's a recent thriller. And I think this is not helpful at all. The author's name begins with an S, but it has the image of a girl on the cover, kind of like a young girl, and it is creepy AF. And I really like it. It is a really good example of a domestic psychological thriller with an unreliable narrator who I both dislike, but also really, really love. It's hard to pull off. I do not know how she's pulling it off. And also, here's something that I've been thinking about for this particular book. She has three sub-thread mysteries. She has these big three open loops. She has something around the sister, something around a car crash, and also something around her daughter. And none of those three, I cannot figure out how they could possibly be related. And I'm going to guess right now that maybe they're not. But even if sometimes I get tired reading a thrilling, scary book, like I'm just not ready for the adrenaline. But this book, even if the more scary sister/mom angle is making me tired, I have to keep reading because I got to find out what's going to happen to the daughter or this car crash backstory. Honestly, these open loops that I am dying to know the answers to keep me reading. And it's really great writing, and I'm enjoying it very, very much. So, and I've been reading a bunch of other books too, but that's the one that jumps out at me when I think about what I've been reading. What else have I been doing? I've been working on the keynote speech for RW and Z, Romance Writers of New Zealand, and I could not be more excited to be working on this speech. I was invited in 2020, and we all know how that went. And then I was invited again in 2021, which is the year that we moved here. And I actually happened to be in a quarantine hotel during the conference itself. And quarantine hotels were assigned basically on a lottery basis. And the fact that we got one and we got to get into the country meant that I could do nothing about it. That was when we were going to be in quarantine. So I missed it again last year. And this year, knock wood, everything goes well, and I will be there giving the keynote. So I have been asked to talk about my journey as a hybrid author. And the reason I am bringing this up is that I am considering also perhaps releasing it as a podcast episode at some point. And I wanted to know if there's anything that you would want to know, you would want to ask if you were going to go sit down at a keynote speech where somebody was going to talk about their journey of being and becoming a hybrid author who makes money, because I want to talk about money. I want to be, you know how I believe in transparency around what we make in terms of writing. So what would you want to know? If you have any questions that you think would be great to be in that speech, I would love it if you would either drop me a line at Rachael@rachelherron.com. You got to spell both names correctly. or hit me up on Twitter. I'm not really reading Twitter right now, but I do check all my direct replies, my mentions at least once a day. And that's just twitter.com/Rachael Herron. That would be a great place to leave me any questions that you might want me to answer about being a hybrid author. So thank you very much for that. Other than that, I think that's all. I think we're all caught up. I'm just really, really happy to have this little breathing space between writing and revision. And yeah, I'm enjoying it. So let's get into the interview. You are going to enjoy it. Sascha Rothchild is an Emmy-nominated screenwriter who has written and produced lauded shows such as Glow, which I loved, The Bold Type, The Babysitter's Club, and The Carrie Diaries. In 2015, she was named one of Variety's 10 TV writers to watch. Rothchild has written for LA Weekly, the LA Times, Elle, and the Miami Herald, and adapted her article, How to Get Divorced by 30, into both a memoir and a screenplay for Universal Studios. She graduated from the honors program of Boston College, summa cum laude, and with a major in theater and screenwriting. Blood Sugar is her debut novel. Please enjoy this interview, y'all. Well, I'm so pleased to have you on the show, Sascha. Will you please give us your name and pronouns?
My name is Sascha Rothchild, and I am she, her.
Thank you, and welcome to How Do You Write? I absolutely loved Blood Sugar. It's one of my catnip genres. It's a genre I write in, and you do thriller so well. And this is your debut novel. You've been in the industry and around the industry for a long time, but this is your debut novel. And as we are speaking, this will go out later, but as we're speaking, I think it's only been out about a week. Is that right?
Yes, it came out exactly 7 days ago, was the book birthday.
Because this is so exciting, especially to listeners and always to myself, will you tell us a little bit about what this week has been like? How has it felt?
It has felt really complicated because it's so exciting. The book is in the world, people are reading it, people are having opinions, which is what I wanted. But also, I have absolutely no control over it anymore. It exists, it's out there, and it's exactly what I hoped would happen. When I started writing this, I hoped one day it might be published and people would read it. But now that it's out there, there's just a little bit of like, I guess, it's a little nervousness. It's excitement, but it's also a little nerves about response. I think as much as like, it's easy to be like, I don't care, but of course, I care about what people think. And what I wanted to accomplish was that this was a book that people could love or hate, but really discuss. And so I think that's, well, so far I feel like that's what I've achieved. I'm okay with people, not liking it as long as there's an opinion and not just like a meh. Like that's sort of my worst fear, is a meh.
Yes, I have always said that I want 1 and 5 stars. It's the 3-star that like hurt my heart. I don't want you to be mad. If you hate it, fantastic. And there's a reason for that. And they're obviously not our readers, but oh, that's so exciting. Have you been able to do any kind of a launch party or anything?
I had one live event in Los Angeles at Book Soup, which is a great independent bookstore.
I love that store. Yeah.
And then a party afterwards, which was so nice. And that was sort of my one in person, which was lovely to just be here and to see my friends and to be able to do one thing sort of live. And the interesting thing I've learned from publishers is that this Zoom world of doing virtual events for bookstores, which I've done many this week, is actually working really well for people. And it might really be the wave of the future in all times. So
I totally agree. It helps the small bookseller. You can go anywhere, you can be anywhere. But it is also fun to have a party for yourself.
Yes. There's one party. So that was perfect.
Excellent. Will you tell us, because this is a show about writing processes, will you tell us about your writing process? How do you fit your writing in to the life you're already living? Where does it go?
So I am a really structured person, and I have been a writer my whole life. I'm sort of was one of those kids that, 7, 8 years old, had a diary and was writing short stories or sort of conversations I overheard. And often felt that if I didn't write it down, it somehow didn't exist in my life. So I've always been a person that sits down and writes. What I'm writing has changed a little bit. I write for TV. I wrote a memoir. I've written articles. I've written features. But writing for me is really a 5 or 6 days a week. I wake up, I have my coffee, I do yoga, and I sit down at the computer and I start writing. If I'm on set shooting a TV show, those days are 12 to 14 hours in production, but there's also writing involved. There's rewrites, there's giving actors new lines if something's not quite working, there's figuring out the next week's episode because we lost a location. So even within that, there's always writing. And then when I'm just sitting home alone on script or working on the novel, I am about 7 to 8 hours a day of really regimented 9 a.m. start, 1 o'clock lunch, finish at 6 o'clock. Like that's it. And I just sit there, even if I'm feeling zero passion or inspiration, I just sit and stare at the computer until something happens.
And something usually happens. Would you agree?
Yes, because I think that there is so much fear for writers and really for everybody or any artist of having it not be good or not what you want it to be. And if you don't just write the words, I have this mantra, the words cannot hurt me. And if I just type words, I can then erase them. And I'm like, I showed you words, I erased you. But sometimes the words are good and sometimes the words help me think of other words. And if you don't sit and write the words, you'll end up with no words.
Yeah.
So I think that some days it just flows out and some it doesn't, but always sitting down and typing words is what it means to be a writer at the end of the day.
And I love that you said the words can't hurt you. The words can't hurt us. The thing that can hurt us is not putting the words on the page and not doing what it is that we are. I came up with my own mantra today, and it's a brand new one for me. I'm obsessed with, the fast, crappy first draft. And I believe that most books need to be written that way. And I know that, but I'm in a first draft right now. And I just came up with a new post-it to put on my computer that says, fix it tomorrow, which is a lie. I'm not going to fix it tomorrow, but I'm going to choose to believe this lie every day, that tomorrow I could fix it.
And then one tomorrow you will fix it.
One tomorrow, yeah. I will start on the revisions. But and if I wanted to, I could sit down and maybe fix it tomorrow. But I know that when I sit at my desk tomorrow to do the new first drafting words, I will be ready to do more crappy words. What is your process in terms of, so because you are so structured, what is the difference between a first draft and revision for you? Is there one that you prefer? Are you a big plotter?
So I am in screenwriting, and maybe this is a phrase used elsewhere, but we call that first draft a vomit draft.
Yes.
You just out, it's terrible. And I'm a big believer in the vomit draft. I write very quickly and it's terrible, but it exists. Then I go in and I rewrite and I rewrite and I rewrite. So I probably do 20 drafts of something where someone else might really take more time in the beginning and maybe do 3 drafts and it's excellent. But I am a layers person. So first I sort of I know who the character is, but the structure's a mess. Sometimes I know the structure, but I don't exactly know who my characters are. But each layer, I then start building on all the important things: character, structure, tone. And then 30 drafts later, it all comes together, hopefully.
You are my kind of writer. So speaking of, you've got all of this experience in the other forms of writing. What of that, we've already talked about writing quickly, but what of those other forms, screenwriting and memoir, what is translated over into the fiction writing?
Well, interestingly, and I didn't realize this until I had been talking about the novel this week. And it's funny what is brought to your attention when other people read your work. But I had written a memoir called How to Get Divorced by 30. And it was a fun memoir about my first marriage. And the anchor of the book was why I chose the wrong guy in my 20s. And then I would go flashback to moments in my childhood to explain my wrong choice. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until this week that I realized this novel,
It's doing
completely different tone, completely structurally,
it's
is
the same
this
thing.
woman,
That's
Ruby Simon,
hilarious.
sitting in a police station, being interrogated, and she flashes back to her childhood to show us how she got there. And I realized, without realizing it, without doing it on purpose, both are in first person, both are similar structure, completely different, tone and plot and all that stuff. But so I think somewhere in my brain, I really like this structure. Obviously, it
Yeah.
makes me feel like I can really explore. And I like the two timelines, and I definitely like complicated female characters, which is very much shown in my TV work. So I don't know if that even answered your question, but
It absolutely did. And I have I loved Glow. I keep hearing about the Babysitters Club from people, I'm 49. I keep hearing about from people like me saying, Rachel, that's your next show. You need to just sit down and binge that. So you're doing work that I already love. This is just a Rachel question, but what do you prefer to do? On a random Wednesday morning, somebody says you can work on the set today, or you can work at home. What do you like better?
I love, that's a tough question because I sort of love all of it, but I truly loved TV writers' rooms. I love the camaraderie and the collaboration and coming together with a group full of interesting, different, intelligent writers and just talking story all day and creating story and creating characters and bringing them to life. And it's just one of those jobs. I moved to LA to be a TV writer. It was my goal. And it's just one of those jobs that I can't believe I get to do it. No part of me is jaded after. I'm just like, oh my God, I get to make television. And I've loved television growing up. I was always a big reader, but I absolutely loved TV, even before TV was considered good. I just love this idea of dropping in with these characters once a week. Now, of course, binging them. But I'd say the writer's room is a really wonderful, happy place for me.
We all like to imagine that. And I believe that's as far as I'll ever get to it. But I love thinking about the TV writer's room. What is the biggest challenge in your own writing?
The biggest challenge for me, and I have sort of, I think, started to conquer it in my 40s, is I feel like I've always been a funny writer, and I came to LA and I was a comedy writer and I could write jokes, but there was a lot of sort of, you're funny, but why does it matter, or why do we care?
Mm.
And I was very emotionally not open personally or with my characters. They were really sort of two-dimensional when I look back. And I think what I have struggled with personally and with writing characters is connecting really deep emotion with the humor, because I always I will always be funny. Even with Blood Sugar, there's a bit of humor and irony in that. But reaching both points, which I think is so special, when you have a really emotional scene and then you have a comedic button and then you're crying and laughing, and actually working on the Babysitters Club was one of those shows that I really got to practice that, because there's so many wonderful emotional coming of age moments, but also there's always humor and it's lighthearted. And so that was a really nice way to kind of I felt like, oh wait, I think I'm doing it. I think I'm bringing all the things together.
That is so cool. It's the what and the so what, as my friend Cammy Osman always says. Yeah, you can have the what, but you got to have the so what. A lot of times I know I'm not ready to write something if I don't have the so what, which is a lot of the time. What is your biggest joy when it comes to writing?
My biggest joy is not realizing what time it is, and that it's like, oh my God, it's already 5 o'clock. And it's almost like sometimes a genie has come in and written for me. And I in this fugue state of being so in it that time has no meaning. I have two wonderful rescue dogs and a husband, and every now and again a giant paw will swat me like, hello, it's time for a walk, and I'll be like, oh my God, it's been hours and I've just been sitting here. So there's something about that that's really magical, when I'm those are the days where I'm just so in the zone and I'm not just staring at the words.
The best feeling. Can you share a quick craft tip of any sort with us?
There is There is a feature. So for screenwriting, there's this program called Final Draft. And in that program, there is a way to separate out all the characters. So you just read one character's dialogue all the way through a story.
Ooh.
And I find this very helpful, even aside from Final Draft, with any writing, like, novel, just taking a look at taking one character, pulling all their stuff out, reading it linearly and deciding, is this consistent? Is this voice consistent? Is this character different from every other character? Could I swap another sentence in here and it wouldn't matter, which is not a good idea, which means there's a problem with that sentence. So once I create the whole piece, I really start slicing up the characters and looking at each one. Do they hold up on their own? And I think that's it's been very helpful. And you can absolutely do it without the final draft. It helps with literally seeing, the characters, but you can do it with any work that you have.
I know that Scrivener has the feature where you can highlight certain parts of speech. So you can highlight all of the dialogue in a text, and then it would be a pretty quick swing through just to use different color highlighters to light the main characters and separate them. And then you'd be able to read them like that. I think that's a fantastic idea and one I have never, ever played with. That's brilliant. Thank you for sharing that with us. I can hear listeners' brains exploding at the moment.
Yeah, it's also it's a humbling exercise, because sometimes you realize two of your characters might as well be one character. What are they really each bringing? And then you can rethink the whole thing and think maybe that's a stronger one character. And I'm, so.
What is one of your favorite ways to differentiate voice when it comes to dialogue? I know that's a difficult question.
I think really thinking about background is very helpful for me. Where has this person come from? Where are they trying to go? And who are they trying to impress in each scene? I think, especially with TV and with dialogue, when you have groups of characters speaking to each other, there's so much involved in sort of the hierarchy of the group in the scene, or who's the most confident and who's truly authentic and who's trying to be something. So I think background, even if you never show the audience that background, I think it is that sort of like when actors are like, what's my motivation here? I need a backstory. I think with writers, it's very helpful to also have that backstory for all your characters.
And I love that. And I like watching shows, especially that have obviously done that. Right now, I'm watching very slowly because I find it very painful and also hilarious. But the show Succession, and I think that there's not a line of dialogue in that show that could be said by a different person.
Yeah, it's very specific. It's true. It's really, and they're all so awful in their own ways.
They're so terrible. What thing in your life affects your writing in a surprising way?
I don't have a good, okay, I do have an answer. I think therapy. I think going to therapy has truly changed my writing. I think it's again, sort of helped me emotionally go deeper, but also helped me to be more sympathetic and sort of more, it's opened me up to being compassionate about different characters I'm writing, to also understand those characters that I might not think I'd be friends with or like, but also giving them their due. And I think by exploring my flaws, I've tapped into some of that, which is one of the reasons why in Blood Sugar, Ruby Simon, the main character, is a therapist. I really became fascinated with how people in therapy, we go and we tell all of our secrets to this person and we never know anything about them ever, because that's part of the deal. And then I started thinking like, well, what, I want to know, like, what does a therapist do? And what if the therapist was actually a murderer? And, all these things spilled out. But I ran into my therapist once at a diner in Santa Monica and yelled, "That's my therapist!" and completely made a huge deal about it, because that was my reaction. And I thought, this is so strange. He's a guy who has lunch at the diner. He has a whole life. So being in therapy has really helped my craft.
That's a fantastic answer. The search inside leads to putting better insides into our characters, I think. Yeah.
And
I'm
being
also,
less
yeah.
judgmental of
Yeah.
characters, I think, can really help. Certainly, yeah, I mean, it certainly can help because, you know, with especially with TV shows and with novels where you want the reader or the watcher to hate someone, but then like them and then sort of feel complicated, then like them again and hate, you know, if you want that shift, you really have to understand how you can like them and hate them at different times.
I allow myself to be super judgy in a first draft. How about you? I don't really understand them full, even especially my main character is probably in that first draft. And then later I try to be a little bit more nuanced, but I'm just judgy in that first draft.
Yeah, I think that might be true. I think it's part of that sort of vomit draft of like sort of one-dimensional humans, and then
Yeah.
you know, I layer and layer and layer. It's really usually I'm just judging myself in the first draft. More
Yes,
so
definitely.
than the characters.
That's what that draft is for. Oh God. What is the best book that you've read recently and why did you love it?
I read recently an old book called, and I grabbed it just in case you were going to ask me this question. It's called The House of God.
Ooh.
And it's this harrowing novel, but clearly very close to home, about an intern at a hospital in the 1970s. And it is so dark and really funny and shocking. And sort of like, if you watch Grey's Anatomy, you sort of think like Grey's Anatomy is the Disney World version of, and I love Grey's Anatomy, is the Disney World version of the amount of sex and drugs and depression and sort of horror that doctors go through in their first couple of years of residency. And it's so well written, and I guess, and it's a book that almost every med student reads. And it was brought to my attention, and I was really fascinated by it.
Who is it by?
It is a novel. So Samuel Shem, but that is it is a pseudonym, and his real name, he is an actual doctor and he went to Harvard Medical School. And when it came out that he wrote it, Harvard was very upset, and then it became this like huge bestseller, and now they have since like invited him to speak. So, and now I can't remember his real name, but
that is so cool. Okay.
Shem is the writer name.
I'm going to have to read that. And while I have you on, I know this wasn't one of the pre-questions, but I'm dying to know what is a show, a television show that you wish you had the opportunity to rewatch for the first time? You loved it that much. You would just love to experience it all over again. I know it's hard.
I think 6 Feet Under.
Oh my God. That's probably my favorite show ever.
That was so beautiful and funny and sad and all the things, and so well acted. And that finale, that I think it's the best series finale, the best series finale of any TV show ever. So I think that is one that I would love to just watch all over again, having not known anything.
I love that you said that. There was one episode, I don't remember anything that happened in the episode, but the mom sits on a couch, and the way she sat on that couch made me cry for like 3 days. It's so good.
Yeah, it was really special. It was a special show.
Let's turn it back to you now. Can you please tell us a little bit more about your book and where you can be found? Maybe give us the log line more succinctly.
Blood Sugar is been marketed as a thriller. Interestingly, there's been a lot of debate this week about, is it a thriller, which I find, I wrote it with, it's twisty turny. There's crime, there's murder. Yeah. Some people have said it's more of a psychological contemporary novel, or
I could see that.
Domestic thriller, not an actual thriller. I don't care. I'm just thrilled.
It's a thriller. I read it as a thriller.
Book, like, yeah. So the tag on the cover is she's accused of 4 murders. She's only guilty of 3. And it's about a woman, Ruby Simon, who within the second page, she's a murderer. She tells you, but she's getting in trouble for the one murder that she might not have committed. And I think Ruby is someone who a lot of readers will love, and sort of there's this wish fulfillment, and some will be horrified. She is a woman who could go to a party and then not obsess about, did she say the wrong thing to the wrong person? Did she wear the wrong shoes? She's so she's so self-assured and yes, she murders people, but I think there's something very wonderful about her. So that is the book, and it's everywhere books are sold, and also Australia, and the UK, which is very exciting. I just saw on Instagram
Well,
that
that's fabulous.
Australia
I live in
up.
New Zealand, so I'll be looking at it for it in my local bookshop.
Yeah, and it's
I'll send you a picture if I see it.
Yes, please. There's a different cover, which is it's also very cool. I'm like, oh my God, it's international. But I am on Instagram a lot, Sascha G. Rothchild. I have a website, sascharothchild.com. I'm on Twitter, who knows for how long. It's all very dramatic, but I'm at Sascha Rothchild on Twitter.
Thank you for being here so much. It was such a delight to talk to you about you and your process. And I love talking to screenwriters too. I just think it's so exciting. And you seem very, very glamorous to me. So.
Oh, thank you. You seem glamorous with the beautiful light coming in the window. It's the perfect light. It's like you had the director of photography light your room.
In about 10 minutes, the sun will be like right here, and it will not be pretty anymore.
Perfect timing.
So yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sascha, so much.
Yeah.